that I can't seem to figure out, and this is maybe where I'm hoping you or a caller, we could take a caller, maybe a caller could tell me, how is it not just patently obstruction of justice if Donald Trump is the president, now not when he was president-elect or when he was about to run for whatever, he's the president, and he's got Comey there at dinner. He's got Comey there in his office. He sends out Jeff Sessions. He has all these different meetings with Comey. And in four different, I think it was four conversations, there's some quid pro quo expected where it's more or less like if you want to keep your job, you'll drop the Russia investigation. And or you'll stop investigating Michael Flynn. And by the way, you better pledge your loyalty to me. So we've got this guy saying, I expect your loyalty. I want you to drop the Michael Flynn investigation, stop this Russia stuff, and oh, by the way, you like your job, right? You know, and then when Comey tries his best to gently disentangle himself from that trap, that verbal trap, and measures his words very cautiously and carefully and says, well, you know, yes, I agree, he's a good man or some crap, which he probably doesn't, but anyway, tried to get his way out of the door, he fires him. And then, you know, it gets even better. And then there's more. Then he fires him, and then the next day meets with the two Russian guys privately with no American press in the Oval Office that was clearly a photo op just for the Russians. I mean, the Russian media loved that, you know, with Kislyak and whatever, you know, the two spy masters over there, and says, oh, yeah, Comey's a real nut job. I got rid of him. And so now the Russia thing is over. Okay, so two things strike me from that, all right? A, how is that not just on its surface obstruction of justice? Stop investigating us or I'll fire you. Ooh, you're fired. All right, so that's bad. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why there's some question of, well, was it obstruction? Could it have been obstruction? Maybe it was obstruction. It's like, how could it not be obstruction? If I walked into, a job interview and the person said, you know, well, if you want this job, you can pay me $500. I mean, how is that not bribery? You know, so it just seems so on the surface.
So self-evident, right?
So self-evident, thank you. So evidentiary that I don't even understand why there's this conversation. Well, all these pundits saying, well, now maybe, you know, that Comey's connected the dots for Mueller. Now maybe Mueller can come up with it's like, how could he not have anyway? All right, so that's A. Mm-hmm. So B is, I know Trump's an idiot, all right? I mean, he's not a bright man, and he's lived this very sheltered life in his golden toilet room and with his ponies and magical unicorns and whatever, and his bevy of hookers and beauty queens. How is it possible that as he's sitting there with Kislyak and the other Russian guy,
Lavrov.
How is it
Lavrov.
That's what I said, Lavrov. How is it possible that he thought that by firing Comey, he made the FBI disappear?
Right.
You know, like, okay, well, I got rid of Comey, so now there won't be an investigation anymore. Is he that stupid?
Mm-hmm.
And that just completely obtuse as to the workings of our federal government.
I think it's
he thinks that the FBI is one person?
I think it's more than that. I think he is used to giving orders and causing people to tremble in their boots in the criminal world that he worked in with the mafia and all these other gangsters in Russia and China and New York. You have to understand, he's a gangster.
He is a Don.
If you if you start from the position that Donald Trump is a gangster.
And you used to joke about the Bush crime family. But
if you start from the fact or from the point that Donald Trump is a gangster, that I think his behavior then is understandable. It's totally pathological, but so is the behavior of gangsters. Trump, you're right. Trump figured, well, if I fire him, the FBI will dematerialize. It'll be gone.
Well, how is that? I mean, how can he even? I don't know. I mean, I know he was only president for a couple of weeks or a month or still. You know, somebody should have given him, like, I don't know, Government 101 or like the civics book Molly has for 6th grade last year, you know, where it talks about the 3 branches and what each one does. And I think he knew it was in his, I feel like he just made a phone call to that, you know, lawyer the New York lawyer he's got and said something like, "Hey, can I fire this guy?" And the guy says, "Yeah, you can fire him." Because it is within the president's purview to fire the FBI director, but then to just assume, so now Russia's done. You know, we had a problem with the Russia thing. Oh, and by the way, would you like to know where all our spies are in Israel and all the covert agents we have there? And oh, hey, we got a nuclear sub over here too, in case you're wondering. I mean, it was. I'm sorry, words just fail. I just still am flabbergasted that there's even a question.
You know, before
about
we got married
justice.
and you got enmeshed in this business, you were a fairly happy person.
I don't remember. It's been so long. Things make me happy, working in the yard, playing with my dog, spending time with my Girl Scouts and my daughter, going out to Denver and looking at the pretty mountains.
Right.
But I just, you still have to come back to the equipment and the Trump and the reality. And I'll tell you what, that's the hardest thing. That is one thing I will say, that if anyone ever interviewed me, and nobody ever will, but I would say the hardest thing about this job has been the inability to turn it off when I wanted to. You couldn't just walk away and not look. You had to focus on the train wreck day in and day out. So, yeah, it's rugged, but it's not as hard as your job.
It's terrible stuff.
Except I used to sit there and weed through those sound clips.
You know, who was it that said, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, you know, be careful when you stare into the abyss, because eventually the abyss will stare into you. And I think that's exactly what happens if you are sensitive. And I don't mean sensitive in the sense of, oh, look at the pretty flowers. I mean sensitive to the crimes that are being committed in the name of governance, in the name of national security, in the name of fighting terror. The crimes that are committed, the murders that are committed, the death, the destruction, the lies, the deceit that are committed, these acts that are committed under the cover of, well, you know, we've got to protect the American way of life. Which, if this is the American way of life, it's fucking horrible. It's sick. It's twisted. It's degenerate. It ought to be radically changed or just done away with. And I think Trump is leading an effort to, whether he knows it or not, to do away with the bad as well as the good. Now, I think Trump is the type, and so are the people around him, would like to retain all the ugly horror of predatory capitalism and do away with any effort to put a check and or a balance on the predations of this filthy economic system. And who loses from that? We do.